Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith and Candy. Your friend didn't come, I see, Rogie.
No, he gets off at 5:30,
Okay.
so he's rushing here.
And Candy's here with us. Our guest this afternoon is going to be Jeff Lloyd. And that should be interesting. Always good to hear from Jeff. So, to start things off, one of the things that I find interesting is every morning when I watch, a little morning Joe or what's the one on CBS? These morning shows. What they have is a plethora of what do you call it? Pharmaceutical commercials. You ever notice that?
Of course.
It's just, huh?
Everybody needs to be medicated.
No, it's just that there's always a new disease that you never heard of, right?
Right.
Well, they got a new one out, my brothers and sisters. Let me look it up for you. I don't know if you ever heard about this one, but this takes the cake now. I don't think Rogan Smith is familiar with this one. I gotta find. Oh, no. Okay, here we go. I should have had it ready. Okay, here we go. It is called Peyronie's disease. Have you ever heard of that, Rogan Smith?
Mm-mm.
What is it?
It is, as they say on TV, it is as a result of sexual intercourse, you get a curved erection. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh my
I said no.
Okay. I mean, you've never heard of the curved erections?
I've heard of a curved penis.
Yeah.
But
Well, this
not-
is the curved, because I don't think in its flaccid state the curve happens.
It might happen.
Well, I don't know. You'll have to qualify that for me. I can't.
Then that would make sense. Why this is some weird disease or whatever this is.
But it's look at Ken look at me like, oh, what the heck?
Like, what?
It's called Peyronie's disease. Erectile dysfunction is a condition in which a man has difficulty getting or maintaining erection. It can cause problems in the bedroom for men of all ages. One rare form of ED, that's Ed, of course, called Peyronie's disease, results in a bend in the penis that makes an erection. So, the point I'm making is I'd never heard of this before. All of a sudden, like in the last week, they start it's pharmaceuticals because there's something you can, there's something you can take.
A curved. What's the? I mean, like
what is it?
what is
Straightens
it?
it out? What does it do?
Let me see.
I mean,
Test and diagnose treatment. Let me tell you, this is what they probably selling now on the TV because I'm just so shocked I didn't even have time to listen to the thing. Let me see. I'll have to read it. I'll read more. But there's a
penises for years.
No, but this one, it seems like this is a thing. It's a disorder. It's not probably just. It's probably an extreme.
Unless it's an extreme curvature.
Listen to me, you go on. It's extreme curvature. Yeah, you're sounding very professional.
Yes.
Test and diagnosis. Treatment. There's no cure,
A bent
but
banana.
it is treatable and may go down on its own. Medication. Your drug, maybe this is the one. Only one medication, and I don't even like how this sound. Clostridium, histocilium, or Zyflex.
Yeah, all that.
sounds like a cluster.
Zyflex is the name. Is approved by the Food. So now they pushing that. What happened?
My friend won't make it. He'll come Thursday, but
Okay.
he said I'm listening and I
Yeah.
have no
He ain't got that
dysfunction. So gals like the curve.
Maybe. No, I don't know. That's more like the hook. But the point I'm making is, no, I don't have any
Oh.
pictures.
I mean, because
You can. You know what? You can
I
always
guess
look to see
it
if there's a
Steven.
picture.
depends on the severity of
I mean, let me look. Let me see if there's pictures. Oh, yeah, they got the pictures.
Oh, there you
Okay,
go.
let me-
Well, very
that's,
sign.
that ain't no curve. That's
That's a
90
bend.
degree.
That's
Pass it down, yeah, Candy. Let me see.
Ouch! That's a,
Candy say ouch.
that's a bend. That's
Doesn't
not a
come here, let
curve.
me
That's
take
a
you.
bent
Oh.
penis. That's
Oh,
That's
bent.
a 90 degree.
Oh, no.
It's like he got broken.
What the?
Heck.
Oh, yeah, it looks
Ken, what
broken.
happened, man?
Oh, that's not good.
No, that's
Yeah.
got to be hard on the muscle.
Ooh.
I don't know
Look
what
at
it's
that
hard
one, Candy.
on.
Look at that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but that must be. So that's a real problem.
Yeah. You
Wow.
have to create a
No,
whole.
but like you learn
Yeah,
things.
that's
I
it.
mean, that's
Wait.
something new.
Yeah,
that
that's
I learned.
and there is a thing I've heard before. You can have. I mean, I don't want people to get overwhelmed with this, but you can have a broken
Penis?
penis. You know that,
How you
right?
break it?
I can look it up right now. But when we first on 100 Yards, we used to
Can't you
deal
read
with this.
Sometimes I just have to
Candy,
push
read
the
this.
mic
Read that
away.
right there.
On what?
Read that right there.
Are you looking it up, Rogan? What did that say? What did that say?
No, I can't read that.
Why you can't read it? Let me see it.
No, it's
Why
too,
can't
it's
I see
too
it?
far away.
You can hand it to me. I handed you my thing. Let me see it.
But that's a picture that you showed me from Google. This is
That was a
private
very
message.
scientific picture, by the
Yeah.
Why
way.
I can't see it?
On the break.
All right.
On the
Anyway. I'm not going to say it on the air.
no one knew.
broken- I wouldn't say it on the air. Broken.
Okay.
Well, so they have broken.
Show it to him and pass my phone right back then. Just read the last
Whoa!
line.
See now that's the
No.
broken set. That's the
Read
broken
last
sound.
part.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, they nasty.
Don't scroll up. Just read that.
No, it went off.
Oh, jeez.
What
I
the?
listened to
No,
this one.
listen,
Some
people can
band can
touch.
be
I don't like when people
look-
touch,
look at
just
our-
touching phones. Like,
Yeah.
Look at that Candy.
I
Look
just
at
want to
that.
give everybody their own phone
Look,
back.
show Candy.
Shoot.
The broken though. The broken. You see. Now the question is, how do you get a broken? You know, how does it broken? Okay, it can be broken when making love. You can break it.
Some people get
I'm sure people.
too excited.
Because I guess there's a bone there. That's where they get the word
Boner.
ner. See, I just said ner. You
Yeah,
went the
but
whole
they-
way.
We're adults.
Yeah, we're adults.
Or
I
sometimes.
don't know. I don't know about because of
I was
adults,
just gonna say.
but I blame it on you anyway. So we can get rid of you quick. Oh yeah. She'd say that. Yeah, but
Yeah, we'll just let it go.
you just
It is the
I'll
Enfield Live
call.
show.
Would you call it? I'll call S tomorrow. Listen, if you could just wipe that picture out in the back.
Go
Man.
back to your original photo.
But anyway, the whole thing about this, it's the main thing though is that obviously these diseases or these things always existed. These,
Yeah,
like
these conditions
CPPD
have
and all
always
that.
been
But it's
there.
when they
Didn't know how
discover,
to-
when they want to promote a new drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I had shingles recently, and I went to the doctor. Of course, I was in a panic because I saw the ads on TV about this unbearable pain, which, by the way, I know a couple of people who've had it and say that it's extremely unbearable because it's a nerve-ending thing, right? So I said to him, well, listen, is this going to be, he goes, listen, that's probably 5% of people who get that, but the reason they focus on that is they want you to buy the vaccine.
Right.
So now I don't know if there's a preventative medicine
They
for the
want you to buy
curvature.
the vaccine after the fact?
No,
I'm talking
no,
about the
the-
shingles.
you-
You're talking about the chickenpox.
You can get the
vaccine.
vaccine after the fact, but you can also get it before.
I've never
After
had chickenpox.
chickenpox.
Right.
Never
well,
had it.
I
So
don't know if that would apply. You should check it out.
I had a vaccine to prevent me from getting chickenpox. You only have shingles if you've had chickenpox.
Chickenpox.
Right, but I
right.
don't know I'm going to research it when I'm done to see if that prevents you from getting shingles as well, or do you have to get a shingles
I think
vaccine?
you have to get the chickenpox in order to get
Right,
the
and
shingles.
if you're
Yes,
so
vaccinated
if I
against
have a
the
vaccine
chickenpox,
against the
then
chickenpox,
you're
I ain't
not-
getting the
you're not
shingles.
exactly.
But you could get no.
You won't even get
That's
to
who
that
gets,
point.
No, that's who gets shingles. People who don't have chickenpox.
That's not true.
Yes.
The ads that I've seen have said
So
if
you've
you've
not
had
had-
chickenpox,
You
then
will
you
get shingles.
then you will get shingles.
Right. So if you've never had shingles, chickenpox, then you're obviously susceptible to shingles.
But I had a vaccine to prevent me from getting the chickenpox, is what I'm saying.
Can you explain to her what I'm saying?
You're
If
not
you-
understanding what I'm
I
saying.
am. You had a vaccine to prevent you from getting chickenpox.
Right?
What I don't know is because you haven't had chickenpox, will you get chicken? Well,
No,
so you can't get
because you
chickenpox.
can't
Well,
get
that's what I'm
shingles
saying,
unless
you
you
can't
had
get chickenpox, right.
Yeah.
And if
But
I've had
you-
the vaccine to prevent me from getting chickenpox, I won't
Then
get the
So you
shingles.
can't get
even
shingles.
get
Yeah,
to that
that
point.
makes sense. That's logical.
said that.
Now let me ask you another question. Should you get whatever this thing is, this curved penis
Well, it
thing?
ain't
It's not
apply to me.
curved.
Yeah, it applies to you.
Bent.
I don't have a penis.
Yeah, we don't know that. Now, what I'm
Well,
saying,
that is true.
okay, what I'm saying to you, Miss Rogan
is
Smith,
true.
okay, Costa de Lesta. What I'm saying to you is, okay, is that can you take this medicine to prevent getting the
them.
curved, or is it just a treatment of the curved?
Why are you
That
saying
sounds like a
curved
condition
with
that,
the
I
ED?
mean-
The curved. It's curved.
Getting
It's
the
not curve. You see?
Yes. Getting it curved.
It's
Yeah,
bent.
it's the
Getting the
curved.
curved.
You get a
Real,
curved.
guys. It's not curved.
penis.
That's not
You
a
don't get the
curvature.
curved.
No, well, I'm doing, the
Yeah.
curved. I mean the curved penis. I'm just shortening.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm being, abbreviating the curved. So,
Okay.
so the question is, can you, or broken? Can you get it? Well, broken. I don't think you could get no treatment for that. You just got to take it easy. Slow down the
Maybe,
pace.
what do they put on it? Like a
Who's that?
like
A
a
splint?
splint. A splint.
We'll be right back. This is sick. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Francois Gigot de la Péronie.
That's who it's named after.
Yeah, he was born in 1678. So I don't know how he get to be associated with that. They was discovering that
He looks like, well...
he was a lecturer at
Yeah.
anatomy and surgery and was surgeon
Right, he
major
probably
at the
found the
Hotel
whole
Dieu
thing.
de Montpellier.
He's in the medical field, so he was in the medical field.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know what that little thing you did there with the Google
Something just
Chrome is.
popped
Yeah.
up.
But that's all right. Anyway, so
there you go.
it's a thing. And
probably
men
discovered
out
it
there,
and-
that just there's help.
Or-
It's about, they say if it gets scar tissue and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think it has to do with some rough sex action.
No.
But that's
That's what it is, because that's
not
how
gonna
else you can get, because it says it gets bleeding and trauma.
So?
Yeah, not from...
People just
What
die.
was people hitting it with the hammer?
Well, then you'd see a lot of more, guys in that field with some
What field?
with some bent penises.
What field are you talking about?
Huh?
What field?
I don't know if I don't want Urka to come for me.
What field? Like, you mean like gigolo?
Huh? Yeah. Well, no.
In the rough sex
Like-
field?
My hair is
Blank
dry.
hub.
Oh, yeah. She know about that. Anyway.
Why are you always pointing over here?
Why I always point
I don't
over
know.
there?
I don't know anything about
That's
any
true.
of
That's true.
goodness.
Yeah.
I don't.
No. But no.
my
He always pointing over. You know why he
you
points
hang
here?
out. You know who you used to hang out with?
To hide the fact that it's all
Yeah.
on him.
You
He's
know
the
who
one
used to hang
looking this
out
stuff
with?
up. I
You
didn't
know-
even know about it.
But you know who she used to hang out with?
Who's that?
VM.
Who's VM?
Virgin Mary. That's what she used to hang out with.
VM.
Yeah.
Goodness.
She used to hang out with her. He's like, let's go, Virgin. What's happening?
Yeah, I would.
What
I
are we
would,
getting tonight?
I would think the amount of incidences in that field would be a lot more.
Let me ask you, do you think the Virgin Mary went around saying, hi, I'm the Virgin Mary?
No.
No?
You
Okay.
say I'm Mary.
That whole, I know this is just a complete tangent, but let's not get into
Yeah,
that.
that's not.
It's just too deep.
That's not.
It's too deep. See, my thing is this. I could buy the Virgin Mary piece. What I can't buy is when they come to Joseph. See, I know Ken. I know him good. Okay? If his wife come to him and say, listen, everything cool. Okay? I'm pregnant, but don't worry about it. It was from God. Okay? See, I don't know. Maybe that, well, put it this way. That's one of them where you could try once. You know what I mean? Like it's like my grandfather's dead type thing. You can only have one grandfather. Well, two. But I don't know if in today's day, do you think, Rogan Smith, that if you're married, you have a wonderful relationship with your husband, and let's just say it happened. Just say you woke up one day
Pregnant?
and you were pregnant, or as we say,
Pregnant.
okay? Or big up. Could you go to Mr. Smith and say, listen, I want to tell you something. I want you to remain calm. I went to the doctor the other day because I wasn't feeling well every morning, so I went to the doctor, and I discovered that I'm pregnant. And I just want you to understand that I have not had any relations with anyone. You think Mr. Smith go on with that? Like phase 2, Virgin Mary 2? Like a cereal?
No, I don't think he's going to accept that.
But Joseph bought into that big time.
Well, everybody
Yeah.
did.
No, I
Even
don't think everyone.
Daddy did
Everyone
too.
didn't matter.
Pops.
Who?
Huh?
Who's Paps? Who's Paps?
Pops. The parents.
Of the father of Mary.
Yes.
We never hear nothing
I
about
never
them.
really heard about the
Nobody
parents
ever
of
heard
Mary.
about the parents of
Well, I believe-
I think they what they call it they what you call it, they banish her. Yeah, you can walk
No,
your
but they
hip
were-
to Bethlehem. Get out of this
They
town.
were there in the movies.
They were banished.
No,
Huh?
they were there in the movies.
In the
Say in the
movies.
movies,
Yeah.
in the
What
Bible.
movie? What movie? What movie are you talking about? Okay. I mean, think about this now. Okay, how good of a fella Joseph was. Not only did she come to him and said, Joe, I imagine she called him Joe. Joe, listen, everything's good. I'm pregnant with God's child, and we have to go to Bethlehem. Now I'll be on the donkey while you walk. I mean, he's a good fella, man.
Because she's pregnant.
Yeah, because she's pregnant.
And see, it had to happen with Joseph because he was of a different ilk. He was a different type of cat. He couldn't have been Edward Fields
No,
because
he
you were
probably-
going to be a doubting Thomas.
No, he was probably a little off, if you ask me. But no, me? What about doubting Ken?
No, I'm saying
And doubting Mr.
Could
Smith?
have been a Bahamian man. I'll tell you
Okay,
that.
and now I must walk? The only walk,
I
the
should
only,
try that.
it would be a carrier. It would be one of them carrier.
I should try that.
No, but
for real.
so she got a good pass, man. She got a good pass.
Yeah.
You gotta give Joseph a pat. And then on top of it, he didn't really get no play in the Bible.
Yay.
You heard he was a carpenter.
Who?
They didn't even use him to build a cross. He was completely out of the picture.
No, but did you even hear about him?
He was a carpenter.
Well, like father, like son.
That's where Jesus learned how to carpenter.
I know Jesus was a carpenter.
I cannot answer.
Was Joseph a carpenter?
He was a carpenter, right?
I don't recall.
See, you don't even know the history of the brother.
I don't know if he was a carpenter.
You don't hear about him.
All we
much
know is he
anymore.
walked to
Where was
Bethlehem
he
and then
during
boom. Where did he go all the
during-
time? He was vanished. Did he die?
Right.
I mean, this is warrants very.
When Jesus was on the cross.
This
where
is why
was
they don't have no
Joseph?
respect for Father's Day, you know.
No, where was Joseph? That's probably right.
Okay,
Think about
yeah,
that.
you were right.
What,
They
he
said
was
the
a
Gospels
carpenter?
describe Joseph as a tekton, which traditionally has meant carpenter.
Uh-huh.
And it's assumed that Joseph, well, there you go, taught the craft to Jesus in
Yeah, because
Nazareth.
you had it down.
But where did he go after?
After the
However,
manger, what happened with him?
at this point, however, Joseph is never mentioned again by name
where
in the
did he
Bible.
go for true?
This is BS.
Although the
That's
story
wrong.
of Jesus
You
in
know
the
what?
temple includes a reference to both his parents.
You know what? Let me
See,
tell you
I
something.
didn't know he was a
They
carpenter.
should be glad.
Tekton.
They should be damn glad they didn't have your big DNA back then.
No, but they don't have to do DNA
gave
because
his
she
child-
said
He was a
she
child
didn't
of-
say it's yours.
I was going to
She
match
didn't
up
say
with one of
it's
them brothers
yours.
floating around.
Oh, he's trying to say it wasn't, you know.
But who he can
I'm
match it
not-
up to? Did he just pull people randomly?
You know, Ken know, Mrs. Smith know who been looking around you, who been hanging around you. We can test all them. Okay? It's a big reach though. Think about it. It's a big reach. I don't know. You think that happened that way, or is it just what do you call it? What do you call it? A parable, or a story to highlight something? I don't know. Well, I don't know. It's a big reach. It's a big reach, and Joseph, the brother, did all of this. He accepted this. And they kill him out of the story. He's not in the next episode.
Never to be seen or
It's like
heard
a
from
series.
again.
It's like one of those, TV series. And then all of a sudden he's not around anymore.
Yeah, character gone.
He wasn't around at the cross. Did he die?
That's what I asked.
Well, I would assume
where
he's dead.
was he during that time?
When did he die?
Nobody knows. They just
Doesn't
said
make
they
reference
don't
to him.
mention him anymore.
He was
after.
an integral to the story at that point.
Was that? He was
said
not
he-
integral.
No, because
he was
he was
not.
with some
And
other
then
man out of his woman.
No. He just wasn't. He fulfilled what he was put there to fulfill, and that was it.
You see,
That's to
very,
walk out to Bethlehem.
That's
to make
very
an honest wife, to
interesting.
make an honest wife. You know, it's like when people come into your life for a season, then that's it.
Yeah, but that's your daddy.
Yeah, but that's not his father.
That's your daddy.
And Jesus didn't really refer to him much either, hey?
That's your daddy, though. That's your daddy.
Mm.
You
That's
would
your
think
mortal father.
I feel,
It's a very,
I feel like I don't want to get struck by
You
lightning.
feel blasphemous?
Yes, I do.
No, this is where.
I can't drink it back. I don't want to say anything.
This is,
Director Reda can't
No,
you
I
see,
will
this is
be-
how we've been trained, right? We've been trained to, like,
No, I
to
question
not question,
things.
right?
I question. No. I question things all the time. But then when something makes me uncomfortable, then I.
Why is it
kinda go.
uncomfortable? Because I
I
think
don't
what makes me
know.
Oh, this is
uncomfortable
a
is
good
the story.
segue to my.
Well, that's fine,
My
but
next
and there are things in the Bible that I question a lot, you know. But I don't know. And this one
I still
feels kind of.
don't. Forget about Yosef for a second. Going back even to Adam and Eve, I'm still having a difficulty doing the math on that.
How them two.
You had Adam and Eve.
Uh-huh.
That's one woman. Cain and Abel. See, it would even been a little more acceptable.
But
or not
who would
acceptable.
they have had relations with?
If you go literal, right?
Yeah.
If you go literal,
Yeah.
then Cain killed Abel.
Yeah.
So there's only 3 people now. Okay?
Or maybe after they sinned in the garden, things changed.
But where's that? Which
I don't
chapter
know.
that
I'm just saying maybe that's what happened.
Ken, you see what I'm saying? They had 3. I try to do the math.
You see,
Okay.
So that
I
would
guess
mean
when
that
you take it very
Cain would have had
literally.
had relations.
That's maybe where that term come from.
What's that?
MF.
Oh my God! Shut up.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just exploring. So
no,
the point.
no, I know where that term came from.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into it's deep.
Slavery. That's correct. There you
Slavery?
go, Kendrick.
Slavery?
There you go.
How you know it didn't come from something before that? How do you know about that term?
as far as I know, it came just like the buck breaking and stuff like that.
You know. By the way,
Slavery.
talk about slavery. This slavery goes back a long time.
Yeah.
Right, in different
It's from
ways.
Jesus, from Abraham
Yeah.
them days.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't think any. This is the thing I think about. I was talking to someone the other day about religion, and I'm trying to be honest here, and I know this is going to offend some people. But there's always been slavery. There's always been an oppressed people from the beginning of time, right? People have been subjugated to those who had more wealth or more power or more weapons. And if you think about it, they had to have hope. The people who were enslaved, they had to have some hope. And the people who, even the people who were enslaved, those people had a hierarchy of power. Because imagine if you had zero hope. You just say, the heck with this, let them kill you. But they always created some kind of hope for you that there was something on the other side, right? So, you just wonder if these things, these religions, because we've had many religions, many faiths, many religions, were they born out of giving hope as opposed to, being real? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because even the Inca, the Aztecs, all of these civilizations had some deity.
Yeah.
Your boy, I don't want to get into that with my man over here who coming in, the deacon.
Oh.
Because he might set me, he might try to do some stuff with me with some water and thing. But anyway, no, it's just stuff that I always question because we buy into this stuff. People kill over it.
Yeah,
think of the wars and the
I've never. One of the things I think it is right and understandable for people to question the Bible, and to question certain stories. I've had the same question you had about in the Garden of Eden, if it were just one man and one woman, they had two boys. How did this? How do you populate a nation? You know what I mean? It's a lot of things that I question. I always kind of got upset, or I don't know if it's upset. I just always kind of like cut my eye every time somebody said, "Oh, you don't question that. You don't question that."
Automatic election.
You know what I mean? And then if you read the Bible, you see a lot of references to people who do question God. I mean, I think it's just a natural thing.
Well, the thing is too, it's not the issue is we have science. So science has this other track of evolution, right? And how we've evolved. But obviously someone had to create something. Something had to start something. And so the question is the Bible more of a, I want to use the word parable, that represents something as opposed to literal?
Right.
Like there were only two people on the earth.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I do believe it does have a lot of parables, and I do think it has a lot of literal things. I think there are just things that we just, you're going to roll your eye at it, but we're not capable of understanding, lots of things happen in our lives that people just wouldn't understand, or they're things that you feel, or you know what I mean?
There's tons of things that you've never understood. If you go back from the beginning of time, right? People didn't understand a lot of things.
That's what
They've
I was
only come to understand more and more things as time has gone on.
You only could write based off of what your knowledge is at that time.
So there's a lot you don't understand. There's a lot we don't understand now. So it isn't a matter. And the one ultimate thing we don't understand is what happens after the thing we know is going to happen, and that is we die. We just don't know because no one's come back and said. Well, or at least people say they've come back, and people somehow they ain't buying into it full time. But no one has really come back and said, "Here's the video," because we're in the video world now. We're on social media. But it's an interesting thing, and it warrants discussion.
Every time I think about evolution, I just go, well, how come we haven't evolved into something else?
Maybe we are evolving.
We have, though. Anyway, that's a whole other.
Maybe the evolution isn't literal. Maybe it isn't literal.
Maybe it isn't. Maybe but evolution, from what I understand, takes millions of years.
Well, and it has.
But it's been millions of years.
Right, but it's not in our lifetime.
More so than that.
See, you're saying, why haven't we evolved like now?
Right.
But the reality is,
we have evolved.
Our history of what we know is only hundreds of years.
Maybe the evolution means you just evolve from being primitive to more sophisticated, and not necessarily.
Maybe so.
No. Have you ever watched One Strange Rock? Mm-mm. It's on Nat Geo. Y'all should watch it as a series.
Well, you
watch
it. For instance, there's no doubt, for instance, that
Hmm?
we came from. See, this is the other thing. You talk about race. There's no doubt that the origin of man was from Africa.
Why is there no doubt?
Because of how the platonic the platonics of the continents were, and how people moved and migrated, And for instance, do you know that in genealogy, in the study of genetics, being blonde is a mutation?
Okay. And a rare one is supposedly.
It's a mutation, right?
And blue eyes.
It's one out of every so many people end up blonde, right? Because it's a mutation. So over time, not only have we not accepted that maybe the origin of man was from Africa, but we've actually gone so far as to say that a particular type of man was the prototype of what human beings were. Is acceptable. White is the thing as opposed to natural hair.
I've heard people keep saying the origin is Africa, but I haven't seen any hardcore proof of that.
Well, if you go into the Google, you'll see where the some of the oldest, if not the oldest, fossils of man they found is in Africa.
That's what they found.
Yeah, well, I mean, they found some stuff other places, So I mean, it's just thus far. Thus far, that's the oldest place they found it. And the civilizations that someone was telling me the other day, and this takes into, have you seen, the guy Gates who was what's his name? Barack Obama had a beer with because he had some altercation with the police. The Harvard professor or something like that, Yale professor.
Yes.
Well, he has a series on that was on called The Civilizations of Africa. And one of the injustices done to people of African descent is that when those who came to Africa came and exploited the resources, etc., they not only exploited the resources, but they totally destroyed the civilizations. So buildings and cities that were way older than cities in Europe were destroyed. So we have no record of it. African people, the one thing we have in common is that very few of us have a record back to our ancestry. It goes back so far and then boom, you don't know where it goes to. But you got to figure, I mean, Africa had some major civilizations.
No, you should
and
watch
they're just
One
gone.
Strange Rock, because I think we think that we started out in this human form. We didn't start out in this
And in
human
the United
form.
States.
We start out in.
Watch One Strange Rock. We literally
watch it.
As an
when you
amoeba-
realize
amoeba?
how long a single cell
Sure,
organism,
yeah.
and if you realize how long
That's
this
the
universe and this
evolutionary
earth has
theory.
been here,
Evolution theory.
billions of years.
As Carl
Billions of
Sagan would say,
years.
billions and billions of years
That's more than
I'm
enough
buying
time to
to evolve.
to
change,
evolve significantly.
Yeah.
Significantly.
It's, you know what? And at the end of the day, all I need to get is a snowball, so it don't matter. We'll be right back. Meet you there. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith, the natural one, and Candy.
I like your cufflinks.
Thank you. Candy Thompson. We started last week. We're going to get 10 minutes on this. We started last week talking about
This
is the Bahamas, and how we are what we are. But let me ask you a question. We say we have 300,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we like 400.
I was going to say 375,
400,
maybe.
500,000, whatever the number, right?
Yeah.
We cannot possibly be that unique in badness. Not when I say badness in poor service and corruption. Let's pick a country, for instance. Look at the big Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like an industry. If you get a phone call from Nigeria asking you for anything, it's a fraud.
Well,
that's how we go.
That's
our premise,
that's where
right?
we all come from. So
no, but I'm just saying. No, I'm saying there are countries no matter where you go, right?
Yeah.
And even if you look at the United States and you look at things like these programs like American Greed and Forensic Files.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just bad stuff going on. So I know we have an issue because we want to strive for betterness, right? But is it really possible?
Betterness.
You like that?
That's not a
Do you like
word.
that though?
I think it's.
You don't like it?
What?
I think it's a word.
Strive for better?
Better. No, I want to say betterness.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
having
it's
literary
important.
license, Rogan.
No, I think it's important to be aware of your weaknesses or your, the things that may be holding you back from becoming better. I mean, and that's betterness.
That's a
and
word.
That's across the board. That
Don't
could
say
be
no
anywhere.
Urban Dictionary. That's real dictionary.
Yes, the Urban Dictionary called
Urban.
Oxford Dictionary. Okay.
Betterness.
the fact of being better than another, or it's ness. It's a state. So we strive for this, right? But are we doing ourselves an injustice by thinking it's? See, I always feel that one of the things we do wrong here is that we don't solve our problems because somehow we think they're unique to this.
Well, I don't think
No,
they're unique.
I'm not saying you are.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, yeah.
I don't think they're unique.
Yeah.
I just think, just like, people in America, they are, a big Band-Aid being ripped off over there about, certain things that, racism and all kinds of stuff. I just think, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist anywhere else, but you have to know, but I think people aren't aware that even in their own country that these things exist.
Right.
They think that everything is all hunky dory and we're going about our way.
I don't think so.
People think that at all. Not this
I think what you're saying, if you were referring, when you came back, you were referring specifically to the service industry. And what I think you may be referring to is that there are people who are in that industry who don't get it.
Yes, maybe that.
But certainly we and a lot of other people are aware that sucks.
Right. No. So the last show, yes, we said there are two sets of
parallel worlds.
Yes, happening here.
We just said, bye.
Because we know.
No, yes, we do know. But the problem is the people that do know are in the minority.
How? Oh, every time someone says that, like, what's your stats to say that we're in a minority?
I put it this way.
I
wouldn't say it's a minority, but one of the things I do feel is that there is a critical mass, and I don't want to use that in the term of majority, but certainly a large segment who don't get it. I
think the percentage is slightly higher on that side.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say
that.
No,
I would go so far as to say maybe it's not higher on that side, but it's not lower than other places percentage-wise. Mm. So if you go to, say, the U.S., let's say the percentage is 10%. Here it's right about 80, 25 to 80. It's unmanageable.
Right.
That's the thing. It's an unmanageable scenario, right?
Right.
And I don't know why that. I think maybe it's also, too, because of our smallness. Our smallness presents a lot of problems.
Yeah,
because we can't correct things.
It highlights things too.
It highlights it, but we are less apt. Rogan always likes to pride herself on saying she will do certain things. But Rogan and people like myself, maybe because I don't know how big your family is. My family happens to be very small. Mm-hmm. We tend to be more outspoken because. Being into you like that. Mm-hmm. But if you go down the road to, so-and-so chicken, maybe that's your cousin in there. So when she's giving you bad service, or even if she's your cousin know her.
Can I say something? Let me say something. I have a relative who worked as a receptionist at a company, right, that I used to call all the time. Mm-hmm. And there was a woman who used to be on the board, and every time I'd call, she was incredibly pleasant, very sweet, very professional. And my relative took over that job. And when I would call, she would be sour. The way she'd speak was not encouraging me to call or whatever. And I said to her, I'm going to call your boss and report you if you don't get it together on this board.
Relative anymore, so that's
I'm
fine.
still her relative. But you know what? She turned it around because you know why? That's embarrassing for me, for you to be on the board acting that way when I'm so accustomed to dealing with a more professional person. There are people who will check their family members or their friends.
Yeah, but a lot of people won't call people out here. It's a situation like with the police, We definitely had more of a scenario with Law and Order. I hate to say this, when we had police who were from a different country because they didn't have that connectivity.
Okay, I need to bring y'all back though.
Yeah, no,
Well, because we were talking about religion, I wanted to bring up, but I just want to make everybody, I just want to be clear that the whole topic is this is the Bahamas, and we are identifying certain aspects of our culture, like that's probably culturally unique to maybe us that. I don't know.
I don't think it is.
I think it is. I don't think it is.
Now, service is one of those that may not be. Yeah. But now, because we were talking about religion, I was going to wait for this. But I think, go on.
Yeah, no, we got 3 minutes. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So I was going to, another aspect culturally for us that I think that we also need to be very aware of is well, I wouldn't want to make a statement. Do you think we as a people like to hide behind religion? Or, we claim that we are this Christian nation. And I mean, can we truly say that we are a Christian nation? And I know a lot of people, I may offend people and I may step on some toes, but let's be real with ourselves.
My answer is totally no.
And we know what your answer is.
Are we a Christian nation?
Are we a Christian nation? And
no, I think we are a church-going nation, but we're not Christian nation. We go to a lot of church.
Yeah.
And this is something. And see, but this is a topic that people need to listen to, because you would talk to people and you would swear, and they will swear that yes, we are a Christian nation.
Yeah, we're Christian in the sense that most of our churches have the Christian faith.
Yeah.
That's it. But do we practice Christian practices? That's another story.
Right. And so do we, are we as people that we hide behind certain things to mask, our behaviors.
Well, or our behaviors shaped by what we believe. That's a possibility as well.
Oh,
it's a possibility.
Yeah. That's a little different though.
Because of what I'm taught here in my faith. But anyway.
Yeah. To be continued.
Yeah, obviously, that's a deep one. That's a deep topic.
When you get into that religion, so half the people then turn off the radio.
No, man.
No, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there. We're deep in the fire. Anyway, we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Our guest this afternoon is Minister of Education, Jeff Lloyd. We'll be right back. Thank you, Candy. There you go. Minister of Education tells me how to say it. Were you aware that there's a word betterness?
Betterness?
Yes.
That's not a word.
It is a word, and you can look in the dictionary.
You can create any word.
No, but the dictionary had the word.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I challenged it too, because I said I've never heard that word. But it's there.
It's a state, there. Right? So you can add ness onto anything, okay? Because it is a state of something.
So there's an edness.
It's an edness. In philosophy, there's a Jeffness. Because all that is about you is a Jeff-ness.
Betterness.
It's Jeff-like.
Yeah. Betterness is the word.
Yeah, of course. As my man Jeff Lloyd, nice socks, by the way.
You're welcome.
He always has on really nice socks when he comes here.
So you observe Jeff Lloyd's feet?
Yeah, his ankles at least. I don't see his feet.
Jeff Lloyd, it's a pleasure to have you. This is that time of year, my friend. And, it's like being in the hotel business when I get a call from particular reporters, say during Easter or Christmas, when they ask me, what's the occupancy like? Now, this is that time of year when we ask you, what is the state? We can get rid of this question. What is the state of the physical plant of our schools? And, of course, we're compelled to ask you this question, and will we be ready for the school year, Mr. Lloyd?
Of course. School repairs, and first of all, thanks a lot, Dr. Smith and Reverend Fields. The school repairs are in train, just as they are each year at this time. Contractors have been engaged, have received their mobilization, they're on the job, they're making, ready the school grounds and school buildings, and teachers are ready in many of these schools and preparing their classrooms. Principals began their administrative conclave today at Malia. They'll be there tomorrow. They're learning different skills about leadership and management. And then on Monday, the teachers report, and they're going to be in sessions along with the principals and the district superintendents, getting themselves ready, making sure their timetables are right. Then, of course, the following Monday, September 3rd, students report.
Do we have... there's one thing to deal with in terms of capital expenditure when you create new classrooms, create new schools. That's one thing. But there's also the issue of maintenance, or as we call it in the Bahamas, maintenance. Do we have a system where schools have a maintenance crew, or is it the Ministry of Education have a maintenance crew, so that on an ongoing basis there's maintenance, so that you can avoid the kind of condensed period of maintenance or catching up in the school year? Or is it not logistically possible?
The answer is yes and no. We have a maintenance team that is severely under-resourced. Maintenance meaning electrician, plumber, mason, and carpenter. But it's, when I say under-resourced, not sufficient transportation or sufficient tools and so on. One. Two, In some schools, the ones that are better off, who buy their tuck shop, able to afford the engagement of a contractor here and there.
Right.
Yes, that's possible. Across the system, no.
Okay.
And it's really a vexing problem because it needs to be. A light is broken, a doorknob is broken.
Shouldn't have to wait till June.
My God, man.
Yeah.
There's almost, sometimes to discuss these things seems to be so elementary and so regrettable. It's really regrettable. But what we are going to do in 2018-19 is to pilot throughout the country a number of schools with this what you call maintenance program. There will be a budget.
Right.
A particular school will have several $1,000 budget, not placed in their hands.
Right.
And they will be said
access to it.
Access and say, listen, here is a budget that's going to accommodate broken windows, doors, lights, and so on and so forth. Something to do with the bathroom. Just let us know, send us a note, we approve it, you got the contractor approved, boom, the work is done.
What about the safety of our students as they go back into the classroom? I mean, are we going to see any increased security, or how is that handled?
Well, the police plays an very important part in the school system that we have, school safety system I'm talking about. So the police's presence, of course, will still remain a prominent feature of our school safety apparatus. But the principals in our own Department of Security are addressing our safety issues and concerns. I'll say, however, nothing beats really the involvement of parents. If you're not properly socialized from the time that you were conceived and then into the first 3, 4, 5 years of your life, you put a challenge on the educational system that is unfair. You put a challenge on the society that's unfair. You are now required to, address behavioral issues when you've been in, you've been contracted by, the government to teach and to instruct.
Right, not to reform.
Yeah, but
you brought this theme up from the very beginning, and I want to, since you bring attention to it, what you brought up from the very beginning is that the new focus is on the new. In other words, yes, we have an obligation to our existing student body to give them the best that we can give them, but really to transform the system and the standard of education, you have to start anew from those who are now entering into the system.
No question.
Are you still on that theme? Is that theme still?
Has to be. You got I said today, the administrative conclaves, let's go back to the beginning, let's go back to basics. You got to. So the universal emphasis now is on preschool education across the country, across the world. Preschool education, universal emphasis. Why? Scientific data is there. If those children do not get that head start, they don't do well future. If they do get that head start, scientific data is there, evidence is there. They do extremely well. And you see, the problem here, Ed and Rogan, is you've got 40%, 50% of our students hitting grade 1 are not ready.
Yeah.
If you hit grade 1 and you're not ready, you ain't going to be ready for 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 12.
You're starting a negative.
You're starting at a deficit. And this is where we have a difficulty with our graduation rates because the fundamentals are not in place. Now, the best place to start with those fundamentals are the earliest stages of life for our education establishment, which in this case is 3 years of age. And those fundamentals are easily received and established in those 3-year-olds. I went to Central Abaco Primary where they have a preschool, and I was blown away how absolutely fascinatingly the capable these young children are. 3-year-olds reading. 3-year-olds reading.
School?
Yes. 3-year-olds reading.
So what is the model that allows that to happen?
Got them at 3 years old. Got the tablet in their hand. Got a very dedicated, engaged, and qualified teacher. It's not a babysitting exercise. This ain't somebody who just likes children. It's someone with a master's degree in early childhood education. She is equipped with the skills. She knows what she is doing, along with a teacher's aide. I witnessed it myself. They've got a big monitor. She's got a laptop. The kids got their tablets. And you should hear them reading.
Okay, so why is that resource? How many students do they have in that school?
Well, in that particular preschool classroom was 20.
Okay. So why is that preschool, in terms of that model, the screens, the teachers, the tablets, why is that not able to be replicated? What has stopped us from replicating that?
Well, first of all, resources, but the resources are now available in this year's budget, which is why this coming September we will begin this September to roll out our technological program. And that program involves all schools plus the 60 satellite education buildings. Every single school, every building is going to be a smart school, a smart building. Everyone is going to have high fiber optic for your internet capability. It's going to have Wi-Fi. It's going to have sufficient bandwidth to do what you need to do to run the EMIS program, Educational Management Information System program, so to run the course content on those various devices. Every pre-primary or preschool student, every primary school student in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas over the course of this year is going to be equipped with a tablet, an Amazon Fire tablet, and the teacher's aide with a laptop, loaded with course content this year.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask this question. A lot of times we talk about the deficiencies that our students have in the schools. We've had educator after educator on this show, and they've spoken about those deficiencies, but they've also spoken about the challenges because there are deficiencies amongst the teachers. The teachers are having problems, and it's difficult to weed those individuals out of the system. How is that being addressed?
I hear a lot of this about deficient teachers or incapable and incompetent teachers and so on. I'd like people to bring the evidence. Ed Rogan, I saw Rights Bahamas talk about how they're going to bring a suit against the government because children are being denied access to education because they are believed to be of illegal parents. All right? I tell them bring the evidence. I still am waiting. Bring the evidence. I understand someone talk about how because they are of Haitian descent, they were not allowed to enroll in the University of the Bahamas as a Bahamian, and that's a policy of ours. If you were born in this country, though you may not have any documented status and can prove that you have been educated in the Bahamas for the last 6 years before UB, you are registered as a Bahamian in UB. Bring the evidence. I'm still waiting. So, yes, I hear you, and I hear all of this issues about incompetence, but give me the evidence. I cannot act on evidence. However, if there are instances of incompetence or deficiencies or defective capabilities within teachers, they are addressed. We bring in the unions, and we have done so. We discuss this with the unions, and we talk about a plan of action. And in some instances, remedial work is provided so that these teachers can be upgraded, or, unfortunately, we got to separate.
The evidence can come in the form. I remember being in high school and in college, and I remember in high school in particular, the school would look at the overall results for students in each class. So Jeffrey Lloyd is teaching a class, Ed Fields is teaching a class, Rogan Smith and Kendrick Williams are teaching classes. And we're seeing consistently good results from Ed's class, your class, and Kendrick's. And Rogan is consistently having poor results. How can you not look at the teacher in that instance?
You must, because the teacher has the one critical factor in the quality of success or the success of your students. The teacher and teaching, the one critical factor. So obviously you must. However, that doesn't necessarily translate into that teacher being incompetent or incapable.
But it's something to look at, though.
Of course it is, and that's why we do look at it, and that's why we seek to address it.
So going to Rogan's question, because it's amazing how in sync we are. What I was going to feed off of was the fact that you said that at this particular school in Abaco, you had a teacher who was extremely qualified. It wasn't just about minding children and liking children, but they were very qualified. So the question is this: how hard is it, if the focus is on catching these children at 3 years old, to say that the standard of teacher, and I'm not saying people aren't qualified, because over time qualification standards change. Okay, when you and I were growing up, you could have maybe come out of high school and teach. Okay, whereas now, you have to have a BA or a master's to teach. So how difficult is it, Jeff Lloyd, to say, okay, you know what? We recognize that preschool is where we want to catch these kids. So in order to teach in preschool, you have to be a person who has a master's degree in preschool education, etc., so that we can funnel those folks to those kids so those kids can do what you're saying in Abaco.
Got to grow there, Ed. You can't just overnight reach these standards of qualifications. Previously, you're required to have a bachelor's degree as well as a teacher certificate, hopefully in early childhood education. Not every single place across the system that is possible.
Right.
So we have to grow there. We have to incentivize our teacher. We have to support them, have to provide tuition, financial support for these teachers. Because, this is now the strength and the emphasis of the government. We are looking at preschool education. We have got to put resources in preschool education. 1,700 students now are being formally trained in the public sector. That's out of 12,000 who will be 3 years old come September. The other 4,300 are being trained in the private sector. But how many Bahamians can afford the private sector education? So 6,000 or so of our 3-year-olds are not going to have an opportunity for a formalized educational training opportunity. The government must find a way, and we are beginning to do that this September 2018 in the school year 19. And how are we going to do that? Where we have the capability within the public sector, a room here, a room there, we are converting to a preschool classroom. Where we have the resources by way of a teacher who is trained within the system, we are redeploying them to that private, preschool classroom. Where in the private sector, we have institutions that are willing to partner with the government, to establish a relationship with the government, because they have the capability of space, many of which are, say, the Catholic institution, Methodist, Baptist, and some other church-affiliated institutions. This year, we are coming pretty close to our objective of putting an additional 1,000 3-year-olds in that preschool educational environment. And hopefully, we're going to be able to do it every single year. Now, it still comes down at the end of the day, you can have all of the classrooms you want and nice building and so on, but if you don't have a quality teacher, you're still putting at risk the formalized training of those young people. And that's why we are encouraging the students who go to the University of the Bahamas, listen, preschool education, it's a very important and attractive career. Would you consider it? I'm happy to say that a number of decided that they would like to give it a try, and hopefully within 3 years we'll have another corps of qualified preschool educators.
As it relates to the remedial training for those teachers that may be exhibiting deficiencies, is that a mandatory training? Is that mandatory training, or can they opt out of it if they want to?
Well, a part of your employment contract is that you have to maintain a certain level of competencies. I mean, if you're incompetent, the law provides that you could be dismissed. So anybody with whom you work and say, hey, listen, you're not measuring in this respect and that respect, you encourage them, provide the opportunity. Of course, they will take advantage of it. This is why professional development is another very important objective.
But it's not mandatory.
No, you don't have
it
as a rule.
That's the issue.
No, but it will be mandatory. It will be. All of these things take time.
Yeah.
It isn't. We are growing this.
But the question, again, we focus on this because I don't know, and there's a stat that I want to throw out, but I'm not certain about it, so I don't want to repeat it, and I don't want to give false information. But I know one thing is that on the scale of what is accepted in this society as prestigious in terms of careers and professions, teacher has slipped. In way back, teacher was very high up there. But I think in terms of prestige and for whatever reason, whether that's because of the compensation associated with it, whatever the deal is, it's not there. How do we take, Jeff Lloyd, where we've elevated these professions like lawyers and accountants, etc. How do we turn that around so that teacher, which is probably the number one influencer in any community, how do we take that and do the things that we see in other countries where they revere teachers and where they compensate them commensurately?
You said it, compensation. And compensation isn't necessarily money in your pocket. Compensation could be benefits. Compensation. Right. Give you an example. We like to compare ourselves to Finland, Singapore, right. And other countries. Right. They're among the highest paid in their society. All right? And there's now you understand why the best and the brightest want to be teachers. First of all, they've got more control over the curriculum that they teach within national guidelines. Mm-hmm. The community holds the school and the teachers more accountable. than we do here. Education is seen as a necessary and vital component to your ascension and growth as a human being. I mean, Ed, I don't want to pick on any particular location in the country, but I know when I used to train young men at Yeast, I mean, young men used to leave the East program at 3:15 in the afternoon and go to a particular hotel at a particular location, washing pots, and could make almost $200-300 a week. That young man does not see a connection between slaving it in high school and going through their, coursework and getting a quality job. As a matter of fact, he might have a mother or an aunt or a sister who's a teacher, and hears and sees them struggling after a bachelor's and a master's degree with a teaching certificate. Who is going to be attracted to that?
Right.
When you can leave, when you can leave high school, 5 BGCSEs, math, English with a C.
Make the same amount of
Go
money.
over to the defense force, police force, get 6 months of training, and come out and make the same amount of money as a teacher who has gone through a master's degree, spent all kind of money in university, get a teacher certificate, and you're all making the same amount of money.
We can take a
Which
break.
is where's the incentive?
We can take a break. I want to talk more about that. It's a very valuable. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with the get-heard Jeff Lloyd, Minister of Education. We're talking education, and not the usual, the school Rome finish and the this and all that. It's about changing the model. We can very easily identify that the reality is whatever we're teaching or how we're teaching it is not the panacea. It's not adequate. I think that's a fair statement. It's not adequate. And so you, Jeff Lloyd, are saying, look, we're trying to seek to change that paradigm because we have to focus on the younger kids, and we have to go more aggressively into making sure that they're prepared for your words, even grade 1. Okay? So the question I ask is, you have a lot of people out there who are completely unhappy with the public school system. Whether they're right or wrong, that's the perception. So you have a lot of people who are barely making it, finding money to put them into private school. If they're paying $7,000-10,000 a year for private school, wouldn't they be better off paying $5,000 in taxes a year that could go toward paying teachers more money in the public school system, bettering the resources that you have, the facilities that you have, etc., so that they could get that quality education?
Well, you have to ask them, Ed. I just simply know this.
Because we're already putting what is the budget? The budget number in $298 million this year, plus 22 million rather for capital development. So that's $320 million. Let me just say it this way, Ed. Okay, and the Bahamian people can decide for themselves how they want to do it. All right. A principal of an A school. An A school is your largest high school, meaning a C.V. Bethel, Anatole Rogers, C.R. Walker, R.M. Bailey, like that. Okay, 700, 800, 900 students, 1,000 students. That principal is in the system for 30 plus years. Yeah. Master's degree, excellent record, ACRs superb every single year. Ain't making $4,000 a month. That principal is responsible for the management of a plant that's a budget that's in the millions of dollars, a staff of over 100, again, students, parents, and you hold him accountable for excellent results and barely making, and not making $4,000 a month. Wow. In a corresponding profession with that kind of experience over that kind of period of time, that person is making close to 6 figures, if not 6 figures. Okay. How many teachers do you have in the system?
4,000. Now that's a principal. Ain't making 4,000. What about a teacher, senior mistress, math teacher, science teacher, biology teacher, music teacher? Come on. So who gonna leave high school? 7, 8, 9 BGCSEs, A's and B's, and are going to look first, second, third, fourth, fifth at teaching as an option? Yeah. Who? They're going to look at law, medicine, accounting, engineering, becoming a pilot, and a host of other vocations before teaching even crosses their mind, unless there's a burning interest in their hearts to be a teacher.
I just did a simple math thing. If you took 50,000 Bahamians who could afford it, because obviously the capacity to afford things makes sense. And you say the tax was $4,000, 50,000 Bahamians. We have a population, Rogan tells me, of close to 400,000 Bahamians. So what is that? What is 50,000 of 4? That's
1/8.
1/8, right?
1/8.
Okay. Now, they pay $4,000 a year more in taxes. That's $200 million to the Ministry of Education. You say you have 4,000 teachers. That's $50,000 more per teacher. Now, I can tell you that I would rather pay that $4,000 a year, and I know that there's 30,000 or 40,000 other people out there who could afford that. If this is the case, reduction in crime because I'm having more qualified kids come out of school who can meet the job market. That we have an educated populace who can meet the skill sets of a changing world. Who the teachers are getting better rewarded, and so we're attracting brightest and best teachers to go into the system. It just nurtures the system.
You make sense. However, I hope that those persons paying that $4,000 extra a year don't expect to see those results in 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years.
No.
When I was in Germany was a country that is seeing those kinds of results among its citizenry, but look at its history. Mm-hmm. It has gone through many decades of trial and error and a gut-wrenching, sometimes civil challenging circumstance in order to get there. We can grow there, Ed. We can get there.
But it's a management thing, right, Jeff? Well, if you get the $200 million, you go, okay, you know what? What we don't need is a more bureaucus. What we need is to put that money to the teachers.
Yes, and teachers should be held. And when you talk about paying them more money, you got to hold them more accountable. There's no question. And you also have to hold parents accountable. You see, yes, I'm going to spend $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year in private school, but I'm going to certainly be accountable. And I'm going to be very much involved because I know what the investment I'm making in these children. So when there's PTA meeting, I'm coming. When there's school report card and midterm report, I am going because I'm forking out, $1,000 a month.
Because right now, public school, there's no fees, correct?
No.
Right. So I use the word 4,000 for 50,000 people. But if you take the full population,
your bottom line is you need more money in education.
And you prorate that, so some people may be only paying $500 more a year.
Yeah.
But the reality is that $500 a year is going to their child's education.
You see the reaction to the increase in the value-added tax rate? Yeah. And that is an absolute necessity considering the financial circumstance of this country at this time.
But I think, Jeff...
Just the financial circumstance of the country at this time. We want to compare ourselves to Barbados and Jamaica. If you want to look at their tax rate per citizen, look at Barbados. Barbados has universal preschool. Universal. Every single 3-4-year-old in Barbados is in a public or private institution supported fully by the state. 1, 2. Every single preschooler in Barbados receives free lunch and free breakfast. Every single one. Now, wait a minute. This is their commitment to education. Barbados, in that country, and I've visited a number of times, education is a serious business. Oh, they ain't playing around with education. I can tell you that. Every citizen understands and appreciates.
But that's the point. See, the point is, Jeff Lloyd,
they're paying for
the money goes here. They're saying, okay, for most Bahamians, the budget and the fiscal deficit and all these things are esoteric. They're out there, okay. But when you have a direct correlation to say this money is going to education, don't you think more people have a stomach for that?
Of course. Of course. I mean, definitely.
You say?
If there's some mechanism by which you could say, hey, listen, there's going to be whatever, charge, tax, whatever you want to call it, and that is going to be directed to 3 very important features of our social development. 1, education. 2, culture.
3, sports.
Or youth sport. And health.
Health, yeah.
Oh, come on. Right. Absolutely. I believe that there's no question that I believe that the
Bahamian those people, countries like Finland, the story there. Well, heavily taxed.
Of course.
But you know what? You go into university free.
Norway, of course.
You go into high school free.
I had a conversation.
You're getting the best health care in the world free.
I had a conversation with the late Sir Lyndon Pinling on my 1197 show. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he said before he, left this earth, Mr. Lloyd, the Bahamian people can have anything they want. Anything they want as long as they're willing to pay for it.
Yep.
If you're not prepared to pay for it, then you want free education all the way up to university. If you want free health care from cradle to grave
Yep.
at the top level of its efficiency and proficiency, no problem.
Just pay for it.
Just make sure you're prepared to pay
So
for
we
it.
as Bahamians go to these countries, we see these things, and yet we somehow don't realize that they're paying
heavily
70% tax
Yes.
on their income.
Yes, of course.
But you see, the thing is, what has to catch up then, Jeff Lloyd, is this, and Rogan, is that they have to start seeing whether it's just something like a park that's kept clean.
have
You
to
pass
see
by Western Esplanade, right? It's a public
The
park.
value for what they're spending.
Where's the money going?
Yeah.
You see, so they want to see, if they see things, I believe the people in
Tangible
Norway
things.
probably complain about taxes. Everyone complains
Yeah.
about taxes.
But they
you
can
know
see
what?
the
At least you
results
can
of their
say,
taxes.
I got this little place I could go do more
And
of
ain't
my
dropping
vote.
in parole.
You know, so are we now, Mr. Lloyd, disciplined enough to start focusing that way? To say, first of all, the political directorate is going to be courageous enough to say, look, you've chosen us to lead you. Okay? We have determined, and you can vote for us out, or you said on our show, you ain't going to no funeral,
Yep.
you're going there to wake. Have they then put the faith in you, or you have the courage to say, listen, we can tax you, but this is the return you're going to get. It's going to be a trickle at first, but you're going to at least see that trickle as opposed to zero. Are we courageous enough at this stage in our lives to do that, Mr. Lloyd?
I believe you have no choice. I mean, listen, we've laid out before the Bahamian people the economic and fiscal circumstance of this country. We have said very clearly we have only dodged a bullet being downgraded as soon as we came to office last year by just the grace of God of our skinny skin teeth. You know, this year again.
What is it? By the shitty, what is it? Skinny tea, right? That's a good one.
We again are holding our own. They're not totally or completely, and you saw the report. Listen, you've got state enterprises that are kind of a drain on your financial circumstances, but at least you're not going to be downgraded. We are faced with a precarious fiscal circumstance.
Right.
Precarious. And I mean, it's no secret. You look again at our Caribbean nation. 17.5% VAT in Barbados. 20% income tax.
Yeah.
20% income tax.
Yeah.
10% what is considered their NIB. All right? Take a look. Take a look. I wouldn't talk about places like Jamaica. I wouldn't talk about like Trinidad. Take a look. The United States of America. Yeah, they are first world countries with first world amenities. If you want it,
what gets me?
If you want it.
I don't know if you're in the education side, and I don't know if you're focused on this, but what gets me is this, and maybe it's just a poor lack of information, that for many, many, many years, we were paying 40, 50% duties. But if you go and someone asks you, what's the tax situation in Bahamas? We say, oh, we don't have no tax.
Yeah.
We don't have no tax. Yeah. So now we've reduced those taxes dramatically to 12% across the board because it's now on goods and services. But again, Jeff Lloyd, I think that the major thing that has to happen here is this. Win, lose, or draw, successive governments have to be committed. There almost has to be a pact that successive governments must say, we have to have the courage to take this country in the right direction, that it will be some sacrifice, but at the end of the day, it means, you see, you can't say you don't want to pay 15% and complain about crime. You can't say you don't want to pay 15% and complain about the bad schools.
That's why we have
You can't pay 15% and complain you got potholes.
That's why we have said, we have committed ourselves. We have said this is about transformation. We have said it's not going to be overnight. We have said that it's going to require sacrifice. We have said that. And, I mean, sure, you live, and you believe that, things are instantaneous. That's how it was before. We were spoon-fed. There was a sense of entitlement developed where you don't have to do it. But that day is over, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, because, hey, at some point you're going to have to pay the piper.
You got to put on the
brakes. At some point you're going to pay the piper. And listen, we can have the society we want. You and I got to be prepared to pay for it. There's no other place that the government, any government, don't let nobody talk no foolishness in your head. The opposition, they have nothing to say. They have no grounds to stand on. When they were there, ask them what they do. Take a look at their record. $1.5 billion in borrowed money, $1 billion in value-added tax receipts, $2.5 billion on top of the money they already made during those 5 years. show us where you have put that money to beneficial use for the Bahamian people. Not one classroom was built in their 10 years. Not one single classroom was built in their 10 years. We have already finished by this September. We're going to be finishing a big-time upgrade to Eva Hilton, and it began in June of this year. All right? In a matter of 4 months, we would have already established a new set infrastructure on Eva Hilton, formerly the Oaksville Primary.
You've been Minister of Education since May 2017. When the first time you came to this show, I'll never forget, you literally, I think the adequate word would be despair. Absolute, abject despair. Now, 2 questions. One, has that despair been lessened? And 2, what metric would you use to say to the Bahamian people that since May of 2017, because this is now the second school opening that you would have experienced, what metric would you say to the Bahamian people would be a legitimate metric to use to show that there's been some progress made?
Well, this year there has been an incremental increase in the graduation rate almost across the board. We have had outstanding, well, I wouldn't say outstanding, but very good results in the BJC results in the system. We have had no lessening, no worsening of our BGCSE results, in some instances pretty decent. So we are on the right track. More of our schools now, there's going to be a new school that's coming on stream in Southwest New Providence. Like I say, Eva Hilton. We did a major renovation. At Stephen Dillett last year. We are finishing the C.H. Reeves School. Thelma Gibson is going to be completed. Significant changes in the development stage with regard to the San Salvador, the Staniel Key schools, and so on. We're going to put a new school in Nagua. Going to be a new school in Gregorytown. We are on the way. And we are making the progress. The students, the teachers, and the administrators are fired up. They accept and understand what is now trying to be achieved and accomplished. We have a very good relationship with the union, both unions, BAMU as well as BUT. They have bought into the vision. They appreciate that they are very important stakeholders in this educational experience and exercise. This year, for the first time in many years, we didn't have to go outside to hire new teachers because we had enough coming out of the University of the Bahamas to fill our quota of teachers that were needed. We are glad that the 56, I think, or so new teachers that are entering into the program at the University of the Bahamas, young people. So, education, it's going to take a minute to turn it around. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are on the right track. Focus being brought to universal preschool. Focus being brought to technology, where by the end of June 2019, there will be a 100% digitized, technologically sound, savvy, ready, smart school environment in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for the entire educational system. 30,000 tablets going to be put in the hands of our primary and preschoolers, tablets in the hands of their teachers and teachers' aides. Education is very much on the way. Student in Michael and Colonel Hill, Crooked Island and Acklands and in Nagua who don't have the benefit of a science or math teacher now will, through technology, be able to plug in where that class is being taught throughout the system and have the benefit of a teacher right in their classroom as if that teacher was standing before them.
I want to ask you this other last question before we take our leave this afternoon. There's the whole student. There's the education side, of course. There's the technology, all of that stuff. What about the environmental side? The green spaces in school, for instance. I taught a lot of schools where, the schools were okay, but literally the kids were running around on rock or sidewalk. What about that? Is there any emphasis or any consideration or thought process into how important that is for kids?
Oh, absolutely. This year, every single school in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas will have a contracted individual or company who will be responsible, along with the principal and her team, of the grounds maintenance. And the experiment that we did last year and the years before in this exercise has proved to be extraordinarily beneficial. Our people are growing more aware of the requirement of taking care of the environment. Our people. You know, this issue of climate change now is coming, as it were, into the deep consciousness and awareness of our people. You know, we ain't playing with this no more. You see hurricanes now are much more vicious, dangerous. You know, category 1 and 2 hurricanes now, that's in their earliest stages of formation.
Yeah.
By the time they get to the Bahamas, they're category 7, 8, and 9. It's no longer, they can't even be measured on the Richter scale no more.
Richter is, I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saffir-Simpson.
Or whatever
Richter's
to say.
earthquake, but that's right, we get it. Yeah,
They
7,
can't
8,
be,
and 9.
they can't be measured anymore. I mean, they're up to now 155, 160, 170 miles an hour. You know, when the rate was up to 150 miles an hour. And I mean, the devastation across the world is not just here in the Bahamas. So this thing about environment is absolutely crucial, and all of our principals are beginning to understand and appreciate where they were quick, say, to cut down a tree. As an example.
Yeah.
That's no longer the
I
case.
ask you, like kids, you know, the government is now, for instance, banning single-use plastics by 2020. Are our kids in the preschool and the primary and high school level aware of things like why it's important to have paper straws versus plastic straws? What is that becoming in their consciousness?
Yes.
Because those are fundamentals you would have thought would have just been in the private school or the suburban school.
Yes. I mean, let me tell you how this consciousness is developing and developing rapidly. We are number 1 in this region in childhood obesity. Number 1. We are number 6 in the world in obesity as a population on a per capita basis. Number 6. Do you know, say for instance, in LW Young, they have Water Wednesdays. Water Wednesdays. Schools throughout the country are adopting LW Young. There are a number of schools now.
Soda.
No soda. Water only. Water. No even juice. Water. Do you know that we had all the trouble in the world to get the power hole requirements for proper nutrition in our schools? All kinds of difficulties. Gradually, more and more of the principals are insisting those vending machines are going to have nutritious items that are not going to add to the fatality of the health of our children. And those lunch vendors now are beginning to realize that this is a serious business, and they are going to...
Vegetable is not potato salad.
No. You're going to have now, the guidelines are very clear. You're going to have a fruit, you're going to have vegetables, and the kids are buying in it and buying into it. The kids are buying into it. The next, as it were, hurdle that we got to overcome is not the parents. Because if it is at home, then the difficulty wouldn't be so great when you come to school.
Well, Jeff Lloyd, you know, I know we have an open, you have an open invitation anytime, but certainly this once a year thing is very important because people do want to see measurements. And I think that if we can now start focusing on showing people how these dollars are spent and what it means to the economy, education is a fundamental of the whole thing. And if we don't spend the money there, well, we might as well spend it anywhere.
But you're going to spend it later. Ain't no question about it.
You can spend it on bars.
You're going to spend it on bars. You're going to spend it on prisons. You're going to be spending it on a whole host of social dysfunction.
Right.
Oh, you're going to spend it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, our people can understand that as easily, as quickly as they need to. You pay $1 now or pay $10 later. Right. Your choice.
Or you lose your life. Jeff Lloyd, pleasure having you, my friend. And we'll see you again. Good luck. We'll be waiting for, when is school opening? The September 3rd? 3rd. Well, you have that little tour where the roof can be falling in on one thing.
No, ain't no roof falling in. I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Ain't no roof falling in. Everything is going to be ready. Our people are working hard and they're making things ready. I'm very proud of them. Thank them.
Thank you very, very much, sir.
Yes,
Rogan, we see you on Thursday. Dr. Myron Roll, a paragon of education. You know, Rhodes Scholar, football player. And now a neurologist at the Harvard Medical School.
He's a neurosurgeon.
Neurosurgeon. What I said, neurologist, neurosurgeon. I don't want to diminish neuro. So neuro, you know, you're all the same to me, not except neurotic. But Myron Roll, who is a neurosurgeon resident at the Harvard Medical School, we'll have him on Thursday. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Thanks, Rogat. Thanks, Scout.
Yep, you're welcome.